All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Brooklyn Raga Massive's semi weekly online series. Brooklyn Raga Massive has been a 501c3 nonprofit for 10 years. We've had weekly concerts and events, and starting with our jam session and moving on to many venues around New York, around the world, actually. And in the pandemic times, we've moved to this online format, and it's been fun because we get to really uh, become intimate with different artists in our community and outside of our community. We get to know them better. We go into their living rooms, their studios, their kitchens, and really get to know them in a more personal way. So we're really happy to have Bill Buchen with us today. How you doing, Bill?
Doing great.
My name, by the way, is Neil Murgai. I'm the artistic director of Brooklyn Raga Massive, and I've known Bill for at least 10 years. I
Any,
want to say the kind of the existence of BRM, but I've
yep.
known about you from long before that because, of course, Bill has been long time, as we'll hear soon, since the 70s. Bill has been a resident of New York, and he's an artist, visual artist. He composes, he creates sculptures that make sound, amazing sculptures, and he's a jazz musician, drummer, and also plays tabla and kanjira, and is part of the Indian music community, South Asian music community here in New York. And so it's really a thrill to welcome my good friend Bill Buchen. Good to
Thanks,
see you.
Neil. It's a pleasure. I really have watched the growth of the Brooklyn Raga Massive. It's been amazing how you guys started out and built, and it's done so much for our community and people in general to expose this wonderful music to everyone. So, my hats off to you guys and the hardworking crew at BRM.
Thank you. Thank you. So I just want to start as a question I've been asking all the artists we do this with. Just as how is your music or your artistic practice kind of changed or developed in the pandemic times?
Well, that's a question I wasn't prepared for. I'd say it's been much more isolating, and it was much more fun to go to concerts more and see people more and things like that. I would say that the BRM workshops got me through the worst of the pandemic because there was a time in New York where it was kind of scary to go outside. So I took advantage of your workshops with Kane and the Logic workshops and all the
Mm.
classes you had. So um, in some ways, it pulled me closer to BRM, and the first year was quite edifying, and it was very helpful to look at humans beings once a week. So it was great.
Yeah, I noticed that you had been in attendance at many of these, and always appreciated that. And it's good to keep that community feeling there, even though through this medium,
Totally.
we still felt that. And well, Bill has just released his memoir about his life, his time in New York, and life in music and art. And when he posted about that in the summer, I wrote to Bill and said, "Oh, we got to have you on the show and talk about your memoir and stuff." I just started reading it. I'm maybe a third of the way through, I think. Um, but it's really irreverent and a great take and lots of amazing stories. And so I think we're going to hear some of those stories now. Bill, you want to begin your presentation?
Okay, I'm going to start with the with this. Can we all see that?
Share a screen? Not yet. I'm not seeing your share yet.
Should I share a screen? Okay.
Share a screen, yeah.
I hit that or you hit that?
You hit that. And make sure the share sound is correct. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, great. Okay, can you hear me, Neil?
Yep.
Good. All right. So I'm going to make this.
You can make that full screen.
Yep. Here we go. Boom. So this is the title of the memoir, and that's a garden fence my wife and I, Mary, made with at the Six and B Garden, and we're going to move ahead here. So
6th and
this is
B in Manhattan, of course.
Manhattan. That's the problem with me and the Brooklyn Raga Massive. I live in Manhattan, and none of you guys and gals stuff is on the F train. So I'm bereft, but I show up now and then taking 2 trains or bicycling. So I love you guys.
Well, you also live in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's the East Village there, and I know that you've done many concerts in that garden, like a yearly concert series with Steve Gorn there, right?
Yes, yes. And we're going to be doing some more, and we'll see if we can't do some more with other Indian musicians. But funding got a little tight. But anyway, here we are. So these are my influences. As a teen, these are teenage influences. When you're in high school and a junior or a senior, Buckminster Fuller really blew my mind. Is a great thinker and about ideas and thoughts about design and life and how to consolidate things and get more for less. Very important to my life. Another influence was John Cage. The fact that you could create sounds from anything or nothing, and his whole approach to life was so amazing and special. He was a big influence on me too. And then I.M. Pei was an influence when I was a kid. His elegance of design and simplicity. He built the National Museum with that razor sharp edge. I always liked minimalism, like Brancusi and I.M. Pei and Noguchi, but I.M. Pei especially as a major architect. So in high school, I took shop, but I took isometric drawing and architectural drawing that was very helpful later on. And another huge influence musically was Miles Davis, the great Miles Davis.
Yes.
And when I grew up in around 67, 66, Andy Warhol was a big influence. And here's a shot of the man and Andy, which is kind of a rare photo. And I was cruising along, minding my own business, trying to learn jazz drums in the Twin Cities and playing with the Whole Earth Rainbow Band in different groups. And then I heard this. Oh, this is my first gig. I'm on the left.
Twin Cities. You're from Minnesota, right?
Minneapolis, Minnesota, yeah. And that's my first gig. Now, I write about this in the memoir. My tux got so many roach burns and stains, it was like rings around a tree. This was not the band for me. This was, it got quieter and quieter, and eventually I had 2 bristles on my brushes, and they said I was playing too loud. It was my first gig, and I'm proud of it. So then this ruined everything. I was at a record store and heard this record. I said, my goodness gracious, how is this dude creating all this sound with 2 hands? Chatur Lal. So that was the beginning of the journey. And I got myself some tablas, and I decided smoking on them was a pretty good idea. And look, I didn't ash on the doogie. Notice the Adidas sneakers, the improper position, everything wrong, but the idea was there.
When was this picture from?
Oh, it must have been 69.
Okay, all
many
right.
moons ago. I'm 72 now.
Yeah.
A long time ago. So then as a kid, I was also a teen in the 1819s, and we heard about this guy, Harry Parch. And we said, what the heck? This guy is really doing something. So the sculpture he did and the instruments just blew my mind. So at the same time, Hendrix came out, Bitches Brew came out by Miles, and Harry Parch came out with this. I said, what the heck? So Mary and I just looked at all these instruments and said, maybe we can do something. Maybe we can create something, an orchestra of instruments. So we got going, and here we are hitchhiking from northern Minnesota down to Minneapolis with our collection of bones.
And of course, Mary is your wife of...
Mary's my wife of 50 years.
50 years.
And you might ask why she's not presenting here. It just says she's shy about speaking publicly. So there we go. But she's a doll, as you can see.
Hi,
so
Mary.
We are hitchhiking to Minneapolis, and somebody picked us up with these bones and this luggage and threw us in the car and got us to Minneapolis. So this is one of our first instruments. When we came here, we only went to the Metropolitan Museum and Museum of Natural History. I went maybe 10, 15 times looking at the instrument collection. I was really enamored of the great instruments there. So we started making stuff, and I had a background a little bit in shop, but I sure learned how to drill bone and make gourds work and things like that. This is 2 of our elk harps at the time. And then we developed xylophones. We learned how to make xylophones from Harry Parch, and we tuned every one of those antlers. And these are Helmholtz resonators, so each antler resonates with the frequency of the bar.
From Harry Parch, meaning
Well, he explained how to make instruments and some of the theories.
in his book.
And, yeah, and then there's a book called Sound Designs by Bannock Scoville that explained better how to make xylophone bars. So I followed that pretty religiously. And these are also tuned. Each one of these is tuned to the bar. And the Guatemalans make a buzz marimba by putting some membrane or wax paper or spider web over a hole in the thing. But I liked them without
a hole in the gourd.
Yeah, yeah. And this was the Royal Elk Lyre. You would pinch that and play cello with it, and that was quite fun. Making these was quite the bear, because if you put in a tuning peg and broke off an antler, you were sunk. We didn't want to do that, so it's super careful. I learned a lot of shop skills and kept my fingers.
And what would you tune these up in
tuning?
Standard
Neil,
kind of tuning, or?
Well, that would be you kind of like 1/5, and then 1/5, and you could see I put markings on the strings to get harmonics, because you could play a harmonic pretty easily there, and you could also bend the note pretty easily. So it was fun. So we, and at the time, Steve Reich was happening and Philip Glass, so I decided I better wear a suit coat to play. So I kind of got into the suit coat, skinny tie thing. There's the other changes. This is a water drum, which we'll look at later. And here we are in our glory. It's two hippies with our instruments. And we got on the Today Show, and we had an exhibition of our instruments at the American Craft Museum, which really put us on the map. Here we got water drums, and Mary's playing the water drums. We had a collection of our stuff in the museum there. So that really helped put us on the map, this whole show. And here I'm playing a plurarc, which is a kind of an African instrument combined with the Brazilian, where it has multiple arcs, and you play like a zither kind of with a gourd resonator. Very fun to play. So in 1977, we moved to New York City. This is my block on 2nd Street. I've been there for 45 years. And you can see the cars, man. This was like 1977, a lot of boat-like cars.
Right.
And you could park anywhere you wanted. You can see down the street, plenty of space. I used to go get a margarita to go and some Mexican food and drive 3 blocks and drive back. It was just like suburbia. Those were the days. This block had about 4 or 5 burned out cars on it. No one would visit me. And this is my building. And when you read the memoir, if you do, I talk about every floor in the building and who was in it. Unfortunately, it was all junkies, floor to floor. So we had to deal with that. And I was a super. So I had to turn on the heat, what there was, or lack of it, and just deal with New York City. Now, New York City, 2nd Street, this was old Jewish New York. This is Murray Blank, the last of the Jewish music stores. 2nd Street between B and A was all full of music stores. And this is Murray Blank, who was the last of the great music stores. And he and I developed a relationship, if you could call it that, where he let me look in his storehouse, and I had to paint his building. So we painted the outside there. And I see now he had a coal chute. That's pretty amazing, I noticed, for coal to get in there, or larger things to get in or not hit your head. That's quite, and he was quite a guy. He played in the, with Maury Amsterdam, and he was born in Russia, played on the trains. Very interesting guy. His name was B. Blank, and he dressed up in a Shirley Temple wig, seltzer bottle, kind of a vaudeville act. So there were 5 or 6 Jewish music stores on that block next to me. This was the inside. You could go in and get cool cymbals and snares and guitars and bows, anything you wanted, he had for a price. And this is some sheet music. You can see Shamil Blanks, that was his dad, Bargain Music Store, 190 East 2nd Street. Then moving to New York, I realized my peers were doing very progressive things, and I was doing Bowen, so I thought I better get hip to the times. And also, New York is a great influence. So we got a chance to play at Art on the Beach. So I dug a lake with Mary and our assistants, and we created some gongs and put them there. And we even played the rebars along the way. So this is David and I playing water drums on the lake. And we made some water drums. We thought we were, but nothing beats nature. So these didn't last too long. They didn't really, they looked great, but they didn't stand up to a whomping. And now I'm going to play some water drums. We're moving ahead. This is my friend Steve Ellis and I trying to tread water and swim and play water drums. Steve's not a trained musician, but he played rather well here.
And are those gourds?
Those are gourds from Africa. Those are used for koras, and that's the same gourds we have here. Those are kora gourds, but we found out they're water drums. Now, there's a similar instrument in Mexico called jicara de agua, but they don't play it floating in water. And when they play it in Africa, they play these drums, but they play them on a pillow or something. So you hear kind of the sound, but it's not really floating in water. It's much better floating in water. It's really amazing. And then I was influenced by New York at the time in performance art. So I got a metal detector and got a grant to go on top of the former World Trade Center. So here I'm playing something called ambient music. Brian Eno had come out with ambient music, and I like puns, so this was ambient. I would play the World Trade Center. I play all kinds of buried objects.
So the signal from the metal detector you had converted to sound?
Yes, I was, when I did this publicly, I wore a amplifier on my back and ran it through a phaser and a flanger. So you could sound pretty much like Jimi Hendrix walking around playing metal. And I did that. Here I am at the Whitney used to have a place by Grand Central. So the Whitney Midtown it was called. So I got to play these George Segal sculptures, play the armatures along their backbones. Of course, I couldn't touch them or they'd kick me out. So this is ambient music, and it sounded a lot like Hendrix. And we started making things out of found objects. This is a series of bowls and stuff like that. And ringing rocks.
That's when you're the original rock music.
The original rock music. We purloined from Ringing Rock, Pennsylvania. I still have those. And then, of course, I joined the kind of the new wave movement. There was CBGBs, there was a Mud Club. So I was in a band with the wonderful David Garland, Nigel Rawlings, and Mark Abbott. And we're all, we had the skinny ties and the skinny look, and we were all skinny, and that's kind of the look right there. And at Hoc Rock, we played Carnegie Hall, played all the clubs. It was quite a scene. Then I composed the work for the Fairlight synthesizer, and this was the start of Sonic Architecture. The band was called Sonic Architecture. It was mostly me, and I did a recording with the Brooklyn Bridge, with jackhammers, with the Sound of the Street, Con Ed, and the fire station on my block, and Ed Koch. So we'll listen to a little bit of Manhattan. This is 1982. It was around the time of Art of Noise, and a lot of sounding. Yes had a big hit like this, and kind of sampling. What? So those were the days.
Nice.
So
That's
in the architect,
definitely a sound. What era? What year around would you say that track is from?
1982.
Yeah, definitely feels of the era for sure.
Yeah, it was the era. It was cool. It was craft work and art of noise and sampling. And I got a grant to do this. It was very, very fun. It got played on the radio too. It was supposed to be kind of a hit, and radio station played it a while. So I was very happy with it. And then we read this book called The Tuning of the World by Murray Schafer. Very influential book. I hope some of our viewers have read this. He's recently passed away. He had the idea of the soundscape is what we hear. And he talked about sounds and just blew our minds. And he talked about wind harps. So then we started making wind harps. This is our first wind harp at Art Park. And it emulated the architecture of the Lewiston-Queenston Bridge. And you can see the little strings there. And it was I learned a lot about making with wood and resonators. The resonator was in here. I also learned about public art. It can be easily destroyed, so things happen. Here's another wind harp we made at Art on the Beach. This really helped put us on the map too. This thing was loud as the son of a gun. You could hear it 1,000 feet away.
Wow.
Built one of these. Yep.
Can you describe the process a little bit? The wind vibrates the strings.
Oh, sure.
Then...
Aeolian harps work like a bow. The archer would bring back a bow, but in an Aeolian harp, the wind brings it back. So it's not tuned really tight. It's tuned quite loosely. And then the strings are quite slack. So the wind blows through, it starts setting up a longitudinal vibration. It goes ying, 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 like harmonic overtones. And it's pretty amazing. And whenever you want to hear it, it'll never play. But when you walk away and said, I've had it with you, they start to play. So they're truculent, they have a mind of their own, and you set them up and wait for the wind. So that's Art Park and Art on the Beach. We built like one of these in San Francisco. We can see the strings here, very loud. In San Francisco, the wind took it, lifted up off the concrete foundation, and blew it into the bay half a mile away.
Oh my goodness.
So it was acted like an airplane wing. So I've learned a lot about wind, learned a lot about wind sculpture, and I'm not sure I'd make another one. This is a wind harp we made in the Catskills. Murray Schafer got us thinking about soundscapes and landscapes. So here we tried to tune a hill. The strings would go from here all the way down about 50 meters to poles down the hill. So we tried to tune the whole landscape with the soundscape and integrate everything together.
50 meters, wow.
Yeah, long strings.
Wow.
We did a couple really long wind harps where you could tune a hill.
And then it sounded?
Oh yeah.
It sounded? And without a resonator kind of?
Well, the resonator, Neil, became the pole. These are poles, right?
Okay.
So if you took a pole and unwrapped it, you have a lot of square inches there. You have maybe, if it's 20 feet long, it's in about 3 inches diameter. That's almost 20 feet of resonator. That's almost as much as this piece here. Then we decided to go nuts. John Cage got us thinking about what is sound. And I was sitting around one day with Mary, and we said, well, the end of a mallet is a ball. What else is a ball? So we realized that pinball was a ball, golf was a ball, tennis was a ball, and we could make these to be sound sculptures. So this is musical miniature golf. You'd putt up here and go down and go around these ramps. You would go putt through this, putt some of this, and we can look at some of this later on, the sound of sonic miniature golf. So we got into gaming a lot. And then we looked at Croquet Ball, and this is
feels like a Rube Goldberg, but
Rube Goldberg,
a bit more interactive.
Yes, and this was interesting. We got a chance to do something at the Staten Island Children's Museum. So this is pendulums that are black light lit. We had black light, and each pendulum has a different length. So they all moved at different frequencies. So when kids walk in, they could hit the pendulum, and you saw different vibrations from that. This was a ball drop with a croquet ball, and the ball would go down this ramp and go through all these lit structures. And this was heavily amplified, also like a like a heavily amplified with a contact mic, and this sounded like Jimi Hendrix too. Everything sounded phasered and flanged and everything. So we got a grant to do this. We got a lot of grants back then, and this was a bagatelle based on Japanese pachinko. Bagatelle was a game in the 1800s where you would drop a pinball, so you could golf. You'd golf from this end, hit all these spinners, and do all these things, and finally end up in the cup that had a sound to it. All this was heavily amplified and loud.
Hmm.
Fun. And finally, our coup d'etat was the Sonic Maze pinball game.
Wow.
This again, all credit to John Cage for thinking outside the box and giving us ideas. Here, our woodworking skills came to the forefront. All this used a router. It's all inlaid, kind of high-end work. And this was a pachinko game that spun. And we sold this to a collector and got to go to India for our first trip.
Okay.
We got a trip around the world, and we went to Japan, India, Bali, Thailand, and that changed our life forever. This was 85.
Wow.
And that's where I met my first, I got introduced to Indian music. This is my people I want to learn from and try to emulate, the wonderful Zakir Hussain, Selva Ganesh, and Anand Kumar Malik. Just to talk about Zakir a second, he's so phenomenal. I got to take about 4 5-day workshops with him, both at Omega and San Francisco. And Zakir sits for 5 hours, doesn't get up. He teaches the beginners, he teaches intermediate, he teaches the advanced, and then he teaches really young kids. So he's amazing, a great teacher. And also in 1982, we had the first tabla record with phasing and flanging. It was very innovative. And his work with symphony orchestras, created compositions. Lastly, it was at Carnegie Hall for 4 nights in a row with 4 different groups. I just can't say enough about how eloquent he is, how kind he is, and what a great teacher he is. He's a wonderful human being. Mm-hmm. Moving on to Selva Ganesh, I swore after learning tabla I would never touch South Indian. I'd had it up to here. I had all I could handle. Then I met him. And then I got stuck into South Indian music happily and loved it to no end. He's a great, great teacher. And finally, Anand Kumar Malik, I met in India. And he's a kind of guy you could live in his house, stay with him, and meet his family and really understand the temple scene in India. So here's our first trip.
And of course, Swami has been a part of our community. I mean, well, Selva Ganesh has been part of our community, and Swami, his son,
Yep.
also great conjura player, has been part of our community, and we featured him in both of them in several workshops and concerts.
Amazing. I've attended everything I could with those guys. They are great teachers, wonderful teachers, and we'll look at him a little bit later too. So we got a Mary, what was the name of the fellowship? Indo-American Fellowship, which is kind of like a Fulbright. And when you get it, we got it to study sound of Indian architecture, like in temples and mosques and domes and everything. So our first trip there, I was so green, I didn't know anything. They said, go to Vrindavan. I didn't know what it was. We went to the Hare Krishna ashram. They looked us up and down and said, we have the place for you. We got the guest suite at ISKCON. So there was 3 huge rooms with multi-layered. It was room enough for 1,000 people. And we just didn't know why we got placed there for $10 a night, but we enjoyed it. So here we are. Hardy Bowl, Prabhu. And then I met the Maliks. Now, this isn't the Maliks, this is their house. And Brindaban is chock full of monkeys. So whatever you do, you have to be careful of the monkeys. There's monkeys everywhere. You can't wear glasses on the street. You can't carry fruit. It's a monkey issue. And Anand was a great teacher. Here I am learning with him. Anand has the ability to play tabla and sing at the same time. It's quite amazing. His son, Bitu, is now working in Russia quite a bit, doing kirtan and many cool things. Anand's a great, great man. Here we're a little older. And he's a temple drummer. He knows how to do the temple beats and play with, he plays pakawas also. And here we're having what's called fruit juice in India. A good nightcap.
Rum and Coke.
Yeah. How did you know that, Neil? Yes. Like you've been
Old monk, old monk.
Old Monk. Yes, that's Old Monk. Or it could be Maker's Mark. I'm not sure. And here we're at Holi. Holi is something I liked at first in India, and then I tended to avoid it because it took me months to get the dye off. They don't use those little flowery dyes. They use heavy aniline dyes, and it's a lot of cold cream. So that brings us to Benares. Beautiful Benares. Now, Neil,
That's where I first learned to play sitar. My first lessons were in Benares in
Yep.
95.
Amazing place. Amazing. Now, one person I've worked with a lot in Indian music is Steve Gorn, is one of my teachers. He's a very kind man, and he's a great teacher, and he's a lot of fun to be with. We have gotten into many fun situations and had a lot of interesting times. Here we're playing at Shivratri. So out along the banks are 100,000 men, maybe some women, very high on bhang, which is ground marijuana, and they're chanting. So while we're playing on the break, you can hear them chanting Shiva, Bam Shiva, over and over. It's quite a thrum on the shore. And running too.
And of course, Steve is also a big member of our community. We've featured him many times, numerous occasions, and mentor to all of us.
Yep, a mentor. He's a real mentor, a good guide, and wonderful guy. This is Navneet Raman. He hosted us, and he's a long-time Varanasi-wala. He lives there. He has an art gallery called Kriti Gallery that has residencies, and he's a wonderful guy and totally supports the culture of Benares. His home was home to concerts by Ravi Shankar and all the greats, and he's just a wonderful human being and sponsored so much good things with the Indian arts. And here's the crowd at Asigat kind of thrumming away. Quite a night.
When was this?
Maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Maybe 6 years ago.
Yeah, that's where I stayed in Asigat there.
Exactly. Which place did you stay at?
Oh, gosh. I was staying in somebody's house a bit back, and then I was in Nagua for a while, too.
The place there's a Temple View guest house. What they don't tell you is there's an arty that's one of the world's loudest things at about sundown every night right next to the guest house. You can't think for about 2 hours. But that's India, gang. So India influenced us completely. And some ways it did was in the work we did. We came back from India and started designing a lot of interesting things. I want to go back a second. Let's see, where am I here? Yeah, here. Being in India, there's wonderful sculptures like the Jantar Mantar. So that we came to India and saw these things and blew our mind. And then on subsequent trips, we made pilgrimages to see them all. This is the one in Delhi, but they also have them in Benares, Ujjain, and Delhi.
And of course, it's an astronomical observatory.
Right.
Where different shapes align to different, equinox and so on.
Yep.
Solstice. And
it's very cool. It's a bit of a paradox. Jai Singh was the ruler there, Sawai Jai Singh. And he knew about Europe, and he knew about the science of Europe, and he still felt that the Earth didn't go around the sun. But we can't help that. So these forms and shapes are so amazing. They're just mind-blowing. If you're a sculptor or musician, to see these shapes and say, oh my goodness, what sculpture is this? It really was a wonderful time. And the visual stimulation was very, very intense. So we started doing sculptures based on the things we learned there. This is our first playground. We did it around the time of our first trip to India. And you could see an influence in some of the curvilinear forms we designed, some of the benches, some of that, and in these dishes. Sometimes the influence isn't direct because you don't want to be directly influenced, but you want to pay homage to things. And this is our Parabolic Bench. It was very much influenced by India. You would clap in the middle of this and hear sounds. And this is all, you can hear sounds of all this on my YouTube channel. Drums. This came from an idea of world travel. This is really what's called a frog drum or rain drum from Burma. And we saw one of these in Macau on our world trip, took a picture of it, and got to tap it when no one was looking. It was from 300 BC. So we emulated the sound and shape of the Southeast Asia rain drum or frog drum. And these seats came from Dumbex.
Mm.
That's the idea. So
Mm-hmm.
this is made of bronze. And we even made the bench acoustic. You could play and talk in the bench.
And so it's made of bronze, and it sounds, you get tone when you hit the
Drum. Yep.
Yeah.
Very good sound. We stopped making things out of bronze because you can take off that beautiful patina with one carbonated soda. It just strips it clean. So not good. And this is another sound playground we made at PS 244 called Sound Carnival. And then, you know, you were talking about Jai Singh and the Astronomical Observatory. We got a chance to make a science garden. So we experimented with star maps and star spheres and things like that. And this is a star sphere for the first second of the millennium, 2000. That's the North Star, Stella Polaris. And these are all the constellations around. So when you saw this, you can find that on this map. And there's all these constellations. This is a trick to figure out how to drill this. We drilled holes of 3 different magnitudes, and it's lit from the inside at night. So we had to run wiring, and we had to figure out how to change the light bulb to boot. And quite much, this is a heliocentric sundial, just like Jai Singh used. We also built this for the museum, for the jail it was. And here's the basic idea. So much of this is from India. If you've been to Fatehpur Sikri, they have a chessboard where Akbar used to play chess with his soldiers. And they would stand. You have a king and a knight and all that and move around. So we did a gaming thing, which is a trick you learn in landscape architecture study. Of the game was you had a little chessboard, you had chessboard seats, and you had the big chessboard. And then superimposed on this was vectors and shapes like a star sphere, a sundial, and a bench shaped like a boomerang. This is for a jail for youth in Connecticut, Middletown, Connecticut. Then we got a commission to build a sculpture for New Jersey Transit. And this is a Saturn sphere that had the same kind of drilling out of it, of a star sphere. And you can see its position was somehow aligned almost perfectly with the former World Trade Center.
Oh, wow.
So this was built, we didn't know that, but the landscape architect must have known that. So we have these dishes that went this way. We were going to do a photo shoot, and I just happened to take this shot with my Brownie camera, and then soon after the World Trade Center came down.
Wow.
So yeah, pretty awesome. And this is a Boomerang Bench. So now we're designing seating and benches, and it didn't matter. We wanted to do plazas. We're just trying to create artworks. And part of our first trip around the world was to go to Indonesia. This is a shot I took of a gamelan there. And that led us directly to other ideas. Gongs. So this gong leads to that gong. This was stainless steel. It would also be got out of aluminum. That's a 1/2-inch thick piece of stainless steel. Right now alone, that material would be a lot. And here we, looking at a gamelan, and we got the idea to make a wind gamelan. We saw these individual bars being hit in Indonesia, and we got the idea to make a wind sculpture that could play and hit these bars. Then we went to Burma and got the idea for wind bells.
Wind bells.
These are wind bells like you might find in Burma. All these stupas have wind bells on them. You see them here. Various things around there. Those are all wind bells that play in the wind. And we bought a bunch and said, well, we know what to do with that. So we made sculpture. This is a Children's Museum of Richmond with a sculpture hanging down and a sculpture of wind reeds. And these are wind bells. So this world travel really influenced us a lot. Then we made several sound parks based on drums from around the world. This is in Pompano, Florida. And this is Playground for
That,
All
that
Children.
part of that looks like a berimbau there.
That is a berimbau, but you can't have this facing the ground people because they'll put trash in it. Huh, how about that? So you had to make it like that. And this is called timbao. It's a Brazilian drum. This is a bata drum from Cuba in Africa. And this is a djembe where you can play the djembe with your feet and play the drum. This is a djembe with the seat and the djembe and the earth drum. We got the idea for the earth drum from reading about African music.
Would these get hot on like sunny days or warm days to touch?
Well, those are good questions. Yes, but often we insist now that they put shade around them. And if you paint the surface white, there's no problem. So sometimes we do that, but the best thing is to have shade. And this is a conga, quinto, and tumba from Cuba as drums. And we make a living now selling this playground equipment around the world.
And that the backdrop there is resonates the sound?
Yes, that's a parabolic dish and resonates the sound. That's one of our signature things. By studying a lot about music and music making and the history of music making, people always had a sacred place to make music and a sacred spot. So this was a idea of making magical music making areas that looked really engaging, get people to come to them. And that was the basis of sonic architecture, to create these interesting, engaging environments that were music and sound making. We want people to play music, not so much to consume popular music, except for the work of BRM, but to create music. We want people to be creators, not listeners so much. Then we aligned with a couple playground companies. This is out of Singapore called Playpoint, and we gave them license to create our designs. And so we have a lot of work around the world now. We have fabrication in a little bit in Australia and in Singapore. So if we have jobs over there, you save shipping, you save duty, you save a lot of money, and you can bring it to the workers making the objects, and we get more money this way too. This is one of our first sound parks in San Francisco. This is Pacifico playing, and our fabricator, Pat Fitzgerald, playing. See the earth drum? At the time, this was galvanized, kind of a new idea. And this is our first project in New York with drums at Socrates Sculpture Park, a concert there. Making instruments, you can be seduced by shape or you can be seduced by sound. Well, these sound awful good. These sound rather good. These ears didn't sound that good, but they look good. And these drums at an angle didn't sound so good, but they looked great. So it's a trade-off.
Is that still there at Socrates?
Oh, they got taken out many moons ago.
Okay, yeah.
Now we have many drums throughout New York City in public parks. New York City Parks has bought a lot from us over the years. This was big buys, big years at PS 23. Let me make sure I got this all together. Yep, okay. And one project we never got to do was this idea of, remember back to Buckminster Fuller, this is a Dymaxion map. And the idea was, why don't we create a sound playground where Indonesia, the archipelago, has got drums. The Tibetan Plateau is a slide. That's the Himalayas. This was the North Pole. And there was djembe drums in Africa. These are the boats of great expeditions. And Antarctica, we had drums from Brazil here. We had drums from Cuba here. And there were telephone tubes. So you could talk from San Francisco and communicate with Recife, Brazil, or you can talk in New York and communicate with the Gold Coast of Africa or Madagascar. Or so there was linking of telephone tubes. The idea was to make a geographical playground. And I never got this built. Mary and I didn't, but we'd love to do it.
Beautiful.
looking. And here it is realized as a drawing. You can see how you could be in Africa talking a telephone tube with a kid in America. Kid in New Orleans could talk to a kid in Africa. It was really quite fun.
Yeah.
We're just trying to get it done. So it would have been great, but we're
Still,
not done yet.
yeah, yeah. Still, I look forward to it.
And here's some of our locations of work around the world. We've got all the work in the United States. Most of it was built by Eastern Sheet Metal, which is our beautiful partners, strong partners in New Jersey. They're great to work with. If anyone needs stainless steel fabrication, high-end fabrication, they are the best. They're just amazing people. We've worked with them for 20 years. They are great. They're honest, hardworking, and deliver a product. They're wonderful, wonderful to work with. And then we have other work around the world. We have work in Dubai, wind reeds. We have telephone tubes in Europe, and a lot of work with our partners in Southeast Asia. And then so finally we'd done a lot of North India, done a lot of festivals, studied tabla and Brindaban, and then I met Selva Ganesh, and that was the start of another journey. So we started going to South India and hanging out with Selva Ganesh, Bhikkhu, and Swami, and really got to know these people and see the music concerts and the music season in South India.
Of course, there's 3 generations there of South Indian percussion royalty. Bhikkhu is original great classical percussionist, and of course, original member of Shakti.
Yep, these are wonderful people, very creative, inspirational, and honest, hardworking, great musicians. I can't say enough about this family. Wonderful. Then when you're in South India, you meet people and hear music I didn't expect. Like this is Rajesh Viadia, I think you pronounce it. And he is too much.
He is amazing. Yeah, I've seen him play.
Yeah, he is. He just knocked our socks off. He's kind of like a master. I just can't explain it, but Howling Wolf comes in there somehow. He's like a master player, like John McLaughlin or somebody meets Howling Wolf. He's got this energy, and he's always experimenting. He does fusion, he does electronics, and he does classical and movie music. And he's just one great player. I just can't get over how great he is. Here he's playing with Swami. And you get to meet these people up close and hear them up close as much as you want. It's too much.
Yeah.
Another person we really liked was Al Shankar. I've liked him my whole life, but South in India, you can hear him up close and meet him, and he's playing around a lot. Just terrific. And a third guy you don't hear about much, but Jomi James. He is a very special percussionist. He had a stroke the last couple of years, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and Jomi James is a guy. Jomi George. He's a tremendous percussionist, tremendous thinker, and he's very, very special. If you look up his YouTube stuff, it's out of control. He's a master drummer, master percussionist, and just really hip. He's doing fusion and classical, just amazing.
He's played a couple concerts way back when with BRM artists.
Oh, he did. Yeah. He's he had a stroke last 4 years and recovering from that. And this is my website. And if you want anything from here, you can see the YouTube channel. You can see the map. You can see the gallery of images, or you can purchase a CD or book. And that's about it, Neil.
Well, congrats on your book.
Thank you.
And if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat. I have a question though. I was wondering if you could go back to that picture of the sculpture that you sold, that put you on your world trip there.
Let me go back to photos. BRM. Yep, that's it. Oh, pinball.
Pinball. That's
okay.
Pinball Wizard.
Pinball Wizard. Yeah, where is that? Okay. Before India. Gaming. The games.
Gaming. Yeah, because you talked about that. I just wanted to ask you a little bit more, but you said you sold that, and that it funded your first kind of world tour, as it were.
Yeah, here it is. Yeah. Yes, indeed. There we go.
What's it called?
It was called Sonic Maze.
Sonic
That's
Maze.
that's from the idea comes from John Cage, that he got us thinking that a ball, the end of a mallet was a ball, and the ball could be separated from the mallet, and then it could be a bowling ball, it could be a soccer ball. You could create music with that ball, and
Mhm.
that's how we got into Sonic Maze.
It's just I find it really great, inspiring, interesting that that this set you on this whole other journey, creating this piece.
Well,
That's
these
a
were
really great
spoingers.
story.
These things would go ying, 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 and the phone bells and little things would activate. And these were your pinball flippers. And the chaser lights by Jack Lindahl would run around, and this would move around. So I had to learn how to do timers. I did 555 circuits from Radio Shack. I learned about circuit design, electronics. It was quite the time.
Beautiful, beautiful piece.
That's
Thank you.
somewhere I sold that to David Vermant and got some money and bought the round trip ticket for two around the world.
All right. Yes. And is there any stories you'd like to share, maybe from your book, or talk a little bit more uh, about the book itself?
There's a lot of
And
stories, but this is on YouTube forever. So I think I should, some of them I can't share publicly, but they're in the book. Um, no, I think I'd rather play some videos and stuff.
okay, okay.
Uh,
I just wanted to mention one that caught my eye.
yeah.
You talked about your first trip to India, and you were talking about religion, and then what was it that you said?
I,
You described that that everybody's wearing weird costumes and and
oh yeah,
and
yeah, that, oh yeah.
I
Okay, yeah, yeah, I can tell that story.
yeah,
So,
please.
so I was raised Roman Catholic, and Roman Catholic, when I grew up, the Mass was in Latin. So, and I didn't understand Latin, nor did any of my peers or any other kid. So you're sitting there listening to a service in Latin. You can't understand it. The priests are dressed up in costumes, and we have statues, which are idols. We have Mary, and we had other saints, and we also had Stations of the Cross that were idols and saints, and they burned a lot of incense. So when I described Roman Catholicism to my new Hindu friends, I said, I grew up in a religion where we we prayed before statues. I didn't understand the language, and there was incense everywhere. And they said, "Well, you're Hindu." I said, "No, I'm Catholic." So later on, I appreciated Hinduism a lot, and appreciate all the religions of the world, including Catholicism. And with India, I realized that the statues, you're not really worshiping a statue. You're thinking of Ganesh as a remover of obstacles. You're using it as a tool for a larger purpose of what's the obstacle in your life, and you start thinking about things much more deeply. So they're metaphors for things, in my
Hmm.
opinion.
Hmm. Great, thank you. Yeah, you mentioned a video you wanted to share.
Sure. Let me get out of this. Yeah, I would like to share. It's here. Okay. I would like to share. This is a video I did for my last CD called Zero Sum Game with the great Pramik Russell Tubbs, and Swami is on it too. So this is a train coming out of Delhi. We'll play this for a minute. And this is music I composed called East Village Kaharwa.
Is this the last thing?
Okay, that was
Great.
East Village
You
Kaharla, and
should.
that was done with one of the composition for that CD with a composer's grant from Brooklyn Raga Massive. So during the pandemic, the Raga Massive kept us going. A lot of us artists, there were little grants and we had a project of doing a compilation record, and I was very grateful for that. And so was Pramik and Swami. We all got some work out of it, and we got a CD out of it. I heard all the other great work by my fellow artists, and it was a wonderful thing.
As of course on our Quarantine Dreams compilation, you can find on our Bandcamp page.
Yep.
So happy that you're a part of that.
Thank you, sir.
And I think it was sounding better. You wanted to play the Steve Gorn video now?
Sure.
Or something else?
How much time we have? A little bit. It's about 9. Play Steve
Sure.
Gorn.
Yeah. Maybe I'll play it because it was sounding better from mine, I think.
Yes, sir. So this is Steve Gorn, Swami, and myself. Steve is really wonderful to play with, and so is Swami. So I'm really lucky to play with these guys. And Holly Lakshmi on tambura.
Avenue B Garden there.
Yep, 6th Street and Avenue B. Yep.
All right. Oh, there's some horrendous ad. If anybody has any last questions, um, you're getting a lot of. You can check out the YouTube chat here, but there's people sending well wishes, and
Good.
I lost my glasses. Let me take a closer look here. All kind of well wishes here.
Good. Sure.
Anything coming up? What's coming up for you?
We're building sculptures for various parks in New York, and we're in our early 70s now, so we're adjusting to being older and trying to deal with that and COVID.
Skating and skiing.
And I continue to ice skate and ski and ride bicycle as much as possible. And I've been working a lot on piano. I really love keyboard and jazz, and I took the master class with Herbie Hancock, delved into that. And,
well, I could testify Bill's in great shape. I was hiking with Bill, and Bill kicked our asses. So,
thank you. So we're just living in New York and digging it and working on stuff.
And you guys are still in that same apartment from
in the same loft for 45 years, not going anywhere soon. It's always an adventure on the East Village, I must say.
The junkies have moved out, and the yuppies have moved in.
In some ways, we still have plenty of junkies. I can attest to that. If you're looking for the funky side of the East Village, it's still here. It's, if you look around, it's there. What I love about the East Village is the people shaving ice and get the ice coco halado. I go to the gym and speak Spanish with my neighbors. My mechanic lives in my building. He's a street mechanic, and we have a very interesting dynamic relationship. So if I get the parts, he'll fix the car. So I'm always, in fact, Neil, to get brakes in Manhattan, I got a bike to AutoZone in Brooklyn. Put him on my bike and come over the bridge, bring him to my mechanic, put him on the car. So we're still kind of primitive here.
All right. So if you get the parts, then
I get the parts.
Get a better deal there, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Excellent. Any kind of concerts coming up?
No, not really. It's been the pandemic did a lot of things going on. Played some weddings with Roger and things like that. And my colleague Roger Libson, wonderful sitar player and Nagaswaram player and Chennai player. So it's been, we're getting out of the pandemic and looking forward to people getting together again.
Yes. Well, we hope to see you at our next jam session. That'll probably be in January at this point. I think this is actually going to be the last event for Brooklyn Raga Massive for the year 2021. We're going to take it a little bit easier this month, and so we're really happy to have you here, Bill. It's been such an honor. And Mary's in the background there.
He's going to say hi. Show up.
Hi.
Hi, Mary. So we've known you I've known you for a long time, and I've known about your work, but it's great to get more intimate, and I'm really happy that our community knows you as a percussionist and stuff. Maybe does not know so much about how prolific you guys are in what you do with these sound sculptures and stuff. So
thank you so much. That's very kind.
Yeah, it's really I'm really thrilled to share that with the community. And with that, I'm going to wish everyone a great 2021. Stay in touch with us. Make sure you're on our mailing list so you know what's coming up. And we're going to see Bill and all of you, I'm sure, at future events soon. All right. Good night, everybody.
Right. Thank you, Neil.
Bill. Thank you.
Raga Massive rocks.
Thank you.